Let's bring in the current governor of the great state of Florida, Governor Rick Scott. He is, as you know, locked into this whole thing with the.
He wants to be the senator.
He does. He feels he is a senator. And Governor, you asked a good question yesterday. How did they come up with 93,000 votes after election night in Palm Beach and also in Broward County? Where did those come from?
They won't tell us. We have no idea. So, we know that our laws are set up to prevent fraud. Okay, we know that they didn't let in party officials to observe. We know that there was no transparency. They were supposed to tell us where all this was coming from, when, how many ballots, all these things. We know mysteriously 93,000 new ballots showed up after Election Day. We know that Brenda Snipes has said that she took illegal ballots and put them in with legal ballots. She admitted that. Mm-hmm. We know that they continued to try to count after the deadline, which was noon on Saturday. So we know all of these things, but in the end, I have 12,000, I think 600 more votes than Bill Nelson. I won the election. There's a normal recount. We had a big turnout. 8 million people voted. So, my focus now is, we'll watch this recount process. No recount has ever overturned a lead like that. But I'm going to focus on getting to Washington and getting my agenda implemented.
So this morning when I'm reading so many different articles about what happened in Florida and the rules that many people are claiming that these election supervisors broke, I'm wondering, why aren't they held accountable if they're breaking these laws? And no one seems to know the answer to that. Why is there someone down there that can force them to give you the answers that they have to give you by law?
Well, first off, we had to go to the courts to get them to comply with the law. I've asked, and Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, has directed the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to do an investigation to understand. We want free and fair elections. We want people to participate, but we don't want any fraud. We need to know exactly what happened here. And that's what we're trying to understand. We never want this to happen again. No one else to go through this. But we won. Ron DeSantis won. We need to go forward and start thinking about our agendas. Bill Nelson is clearly a sore loser. He can't stand the fact that he's not going to be elected for the first time in decades. And he's just here to steal this election. That's what he's done. His lawyer came down here and said, I'm here to win the election. I'm not here to get a free and fair election, make sure votes are counted. No, he wants to win the election. That's his only purpose.
So, Governor, that's your message to Democrats. But what do you say to your fellow Republicans who wake up this morning and say, wait a second, you've been the governor for the last 8 years, and you got a lot done on the economy and taxes. We've heard all about that. And it appears that you won because of that. But why didn't you get more done on election reform? Why didn't you take out Brenda Snipes when we know she got caught destroying ballots in previous elections?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why we filed the lawsuit yesterday, to make sure all these ballots are impounded, that Florida Department of Law Enforcement or sheriffs watch the ballots and watch the machines. There's no issues going forward. We've passed legislation to make sure that we had free and fair elections. The problem we have is supervised elections are locally elected. We have the expectation that they comply with the law to prevent fraud. So my focus right now is getting the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in there to review, to make sure that we end up with a free and fair election.
But why didn't you take her out as governor, take her out of her position? I understand legislation was passed, but when she got caught previously destroying ballots, Governor, why didn't you say you're out?
Well, first off, there's limitations what the governor can do. These are separately elected individuals. Mm-hmm. So you have to comply with what the law is. And so what we've done is pass legislation to make sure, do everything we can to make sure there's no fraud. And then, if we have concerns, get law enforcement to come in and look at what's going on.
Right. One of the other things that some have suggested is a red flag, Governor, is the fact that in Broward County alone, nearly 25,000 more people voted for governor than they did for senator. Of course, you were governor. Now you're interested in the senator line. But historically, that happens. In fact, last time Bill Nelson ran for Senate, when there was also a governor race, the undercount was something like where it is right now, about 35,000.
No one knows. No one knows why. And those things happen. People decide not to vote. We have a lot of people on the ballot. I know sometimes we have judges on the ballot. People don't know, so they just don't vote. So no one knows why. But what Bill Nelson needs to do now is what he would be asking me to do if I had lost the election, is say, look, the election happened. Let's go forward. But he's not. He's just a pure sore loser trying to steal an election.
I'm sure it has to be really frustrating when you've worked so hard, tirelessly, then you were working on helping those folks that were displaced because of the hurricane. You did a great job with that from what we've heard from everyone down in Florida. I know it has to be frustrating when you look at the numbers, you win, you had your beautiful speech with your family there and your daughters next to you, and then this comes in, this news comes in. But there are a lot of people that say around the country, let's just count the votes just so that we can redo it and let's see what the problem is. Let's recount the votes. We want to make sure we do this right. Every voice needs to be heard. Are you questioning what's going on in these counties? Are you thinking there's something nefarious going on?
Well, we know. I mean, first off, we won by 57,000 votes that night. So we know that since then, just in these two counties, 93,000 new votes showed up. How'd that happen? We know that Brenda Snipes said that ballots that she acknowledged, knows that they were illegal, she mixed them in with legal ballots. We know that happened. Okay, she said that she said they did that. Yeah. We know that they tried to continue to count ballots after the deadline. We know that. I mean, so I want all the votes. I want to make sure there's a free and fair election. Right. But there's laws. Comply with the laws. It's supposed to prevent fraud. So you're right, Ainsley. You're right. It's frustrating. We worked our tail off. A lot of volunteers. I had thousands of volunteers. We worked hard. We won the election. So it's frustrating, but we won. We're going to win the recount because it's never been overturned before. I'm going to Washington as the next Florida senator. I've got a whole agenda how to make Washington a better place for all of us.
Senator, are you going to the new senator orientation? I think is in the next day or two.
I'll still decide. We're still figuring out our schedule.
Okay, good enough. All right, Governor Rick Scott, thank you very much. The Florida recount underway should be concluded by Thursday at 3 p.m.
At least it's Thursday. I had heard originally some people were saying it's going to be December. So at least
if there's a hand recount, that could take a while.
All right.